A simple way to understand how the climate is evolving is by imagining the sinking of the Titanic without crashing against the iceberg, and perhaps thinking of the beloved character of Jack, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, surviving in warm sea waters. Contrarily, the Titanic's accident and the crash with an iceberg was a real event, and the water was extremely cold. This contradiction describes well what is happening with the climate right now. The overall temperature on the Earth is getting warmer much faster than any other time in modern history. It means that icebergs are melting and their areas in the poles are reduced in a percentage of at least 10%. Such change is provoking reactions in the pattern of natural events, such as hurricanes, rainfalls, cyclones and tsunamis. Moreover, icebergs are the major source of drinkable water in the world. So why and how is that happening? What are humans doing to create this? That is what we are going to explain to you here in this video. And most importantly, you will learn some of the things we can do about it. Greenhouse gases are an essential part of the process to keep the planet with a temperature that allows humans and animals to survive. Some of them include carbon dioxide, CO2, and methane. They are heat trapping and avoid climate fall under -15 degrees. Initially, the planet produces those gases naturally and works along with the atmosphere to keep them close enough to warm up the temperature. For millions of years, this has been a perfect balance that allows living creatures to stay on the planet. To better understand the process, let's see how the three key elements interact to create the gases. First, atmosphere. First of all, it is the atmosphere, which is the mass of gases that surrounds the planet like a shield. Its function is to protect it in different ways. Firstly, by filtering radiation and other objects from space, including sun rays. Also, by holding greenhouse gases produced on the Earth. The second, the sun. The sun releases three types of rays. The first group is for visible rays that produce light and are about 40%. The second group is for ultraviolet UV rays and make about 10%. The last group is for the infrared rays that represent 50%. These infrared rays have thermal properties. Third, the surface of the planet. When infrared rays pass through the atmosphere, they penetrate the surface. The soil absorbs them and then some of them get back to the air and the atmosphere. At that point, they help keep the temperature at acceptable levels by trapping the heat. To maintain the temperature, there must be a balance between the gases that the planet receives and the gases it produces. During the last few years, this balance started to change because humans started to produce new greenhouse gases or boost the production of those that occur naturally. In the first case, since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution in 1780, the man started burning fossil fuels like oil, petroleum or coal, and also mining. Although they solved many other problems like transportation and production of energy, the consequences for the climate have been devastating. Think of your vacations and the planes, buses and cars that carry you around. They produce lots of carbon dioxide, CO2. That is a very damaging greenhouse gas. That is why it is important to use bikes, electric cars and other means to move around and reduce the production of CO2. On the other hand, man increased the production of natural greenhouse gases. Some examples include raising more cows, sowing more land, or mining coal. Think of the delicious steak you eat for lunch, or the hamburgers you eat several times a month. They all need meat from cows that produce lots of methane gas during their digestion process. This is why it is very important to consume other sources of protein or vary the diet. Each person can individually help to reduce the production of greenhouse gas. It all starts by changing daily habits of consumption. But while this may be true, it is not enough. In this sense, the biggest source of greenhouse gases comes from factories, lands, cattle ranches, mines, and global and general means of transportation. They are all regulated by governments of different countries, and it is necessary to combine public policies, new technologies, and plans to control the sources of greenhouse gases. This situation was something that the United Nations organizations noticed many years ago. With this in mind, in 1994, it promoted the signature of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change that was approved for 197 countries. Since then, there have been 26 conferences of the parties' COPs, and the last one was held in November 2021. Every conference is an opportunity to set goals to reduce greenhouse emissions. For this COP26 edition, some of the most important goals consist of secure zero global net zero emissions by mid-century, keep the increasing of global temperature in 1.5 degrees, protect communities and natural habitats, mobile finances from developed countries and financial institutions. Each country has its own agenda and tries to find a balance. However, time is running against the negative results. The situation gets worse because the effect of the gases lasts for several years. For instance, nitrous oxide remains in the air for about 114 years. Carbon dioxide may last from 20 to 200 years, depending on its own compositions and use. Chemical and fluorinated gases may last just some months or few years or thousands of years. In other words, we are not running for just about the new emissions, but against all the gases that are already accumulated in the air and causing devastating effects. This is why the famous activist Greta Thunberg claims the urgency of this matter. And she is not alone, because millions of people support her actions. In previous COPs, some countries agreed to reduce their emissions but didn't do it. They are still struggling to find a way to fulfill their agreements. To remind us about the importance and danger of not taking action on time, in October 2021, the UNO released a shocking video, started by a dinosaur. It intends to explain how climate change should become a priority. The dinosaur compared the extinction of its species by claiming that the subvention of fossil fuels would be like a subvention for the meteorites that destroyed them millions years ago. To achieve the goals to reduce the emission of greenhouse gases, it is necessary to encourage countries to make reliable plans and follow them. Some analyses are already suggesting that we will surpass 1.5 degrees up to 2 or more degrees. If this is true, then it is more important than ever to support vulnerable communities. However, it is important to remark that some changes in policies in several countries are causing positive effects. The European Union was able to achieve the goals for 2020 and reduced emissions by more than 20%, but the best part is that the PIB also grew up. It means that cutting gases doesn't necessarily mean losing competitiveness. Let's make an analysis about effects of climate change. First, there is no doubt that humans are a key factor in the evolution of the climate, as it's going up in a faster way than other eras. Second, it is also true that climate change is not a new phenomenon. There are many researchers that prove that some areas now covered by seawaters were deserts in the past. Also, it is possible to find them in the opposite way. But scientific researchers also back up the effect of humans creating greenhouse gases to speed up the evolution of the climate. In fact, there is a scientific consensus based on research and observations that suggest man as a cause of global warming. Third, COPs are an excellent opportunity to discuss and move forward to change climate conditions. However, current goals seem to be too ambitious for mid-century. Despite all the good intentions of developed countries, other territories are not doing their part. In fact, some of them are still exploring new sources of oil and subsidizing fossil fuels. Moreover, developed countries still miss some concrete plans to achieve the goals. Fourth, what we all as citizens can do is to keep pushing the country to do the right thing. Every protest, action or plan to make them reduce their emissions is going in the right direction. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Thanks to follow me and see you soon on this same channel.